Okay, well, welcome to Cogent Strategic Wealth's webinar, Bolster Your Health WELLth, WELL, for a better future. Investing in your health now will pay dividends for the rest of your life. Coming off an unprecedented year of stress, uncertainty, and upheaval, are you thinking about how to move back into a life focused on positive health for a stronger you? In today's webinar, we will host a conversation on making your health the priority and how to develop a plan to get you to feel good about your health and wellness. As a high-achieving professional, you serve many roles, none more important than taking care of yourself during your lifetime. It is also one of the most challenging undertakings we experience, yet we rely mostly on media messages to make decisions about our health. Big dreams for your health and wellness requires a plan. Caring well and bolstering your health today can bring you, your spouse, and your family big rewards in the future. At the end of today's conversation, we hope you'll feel a lot more confident and relaxed about your future, especially in developing a transformative plan for how to enter back into a post-COVID world successfully. Now, a little information for you before we begin. During the webinar, please ask any questions you have through the question and answers feature on your Zoom screen. Clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom screen will allow you to type in your questions. Any questions that we cannot get to directly, we will answer at the end, soon after the event. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kelly Stanley, partner and wealth advisor at Cogent Strategic Wealth, and I am joined today by my colleague, Michael Evans, founder and fiduciary wealth manager at Cogent. Together, Michael and I provide financial planning and investment strategies to high-achieving professionals for securing your financial future. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Kelly.
We are also very excited to welcome our special guest today, Dr. Ari Levy. Dr. Ari Levy is in the business of helping people live better. Focused on the intersections of neuroscience, immune physiology, and wear and tear on the body, his work and research is redefining the way we think about managing and building health and personal well-being. He believes that sustainable change to one's health is within reach if the appropriate structure and plan are put in place. Ari earned his MD from the University of Illinois College of Medicine and his MBA at the University of Chicago. Ari knows how to deliver success, as he was also Chicago Blackhawks team physician through their 3 championship seasons. Dr. Ari Levy, welcome to Cogent Strategic Wealth's webinar on bolstering your health.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm now going to go ahead and turn it over to my partner, Michael Evans.
Kelly, thank you so much. I'm really excited to have this Cogent conversation with you, my friend and physician, Ari Levy, today. So Ari, I'm looking forward to this a lot. I believe that health is such a big part of your wealth. It's one of your greatest assets along with your family. Early on in the pandemic, Ari and I touched base, and I just wanted to reach out to him and see how he was doing, and it was just a wonderful conversations. Well, I wanted to check in, see how his family is, see how business was, and his clients were faring through all the COVID chaos that we were experiencing. I recalled speaking to him about how this was going to be a long haul, almost a marathon. It'd be an endurance event is what Ari and I spoke about. But we agreed both that it would be patience and persistence and even some creativity that would help us get through it. That all turned out to be true, looking back at it now. The one thing I've noticed, though, that how a pandemic like COVID differs from a marathon is that in a marathon, you actually get to see where the finish line is. We haven't been so lucky with COVID. We've had so many ups and downs, some resurgences. It's all touched us in so many different ways. But while we were in the deep throes of the chaos when we spoke, we didn't know exactly how we were going to come out the other side and win. So each of us, in our own unique and circumstantial way, went through COVID and came out the other side now as to ourselves and how it is for us personally. We've had so many positive experiences come up and so many not so positive experiences. A tremendous number of people throughout the world have experienced COVID-19. They've survived the infection and built immunities. So important for us as a people to have that. But at the same time, many passed away. And our hearts and our thoughts and prayers go out to all of them, and especially to the ones that have been left behind. Well, Thankfully, we're starting to come out the other side of the COVID-19 chaos. While nothing is certain, I seem to sense a lot of optimism in the air right now. It feels like we're moving in the right direction. Well, due to the amazing developments of multiple highly effective vaccines, it seems that the end is finally in sight. I often think about what are the ramifications, though, of having lived through this past year. So when I think about what are the ramifications, I also think about what can I do next? If you're anything like me, you may feel that you want to be purposeful in coming out the other side, actually having a health plan to ensure that you live post-COVID with purpose in addressing yourself, your own self-care, your health. One of the best things that you can do is have a conversation with somebody who can serve as your guide, somebody that is learned and experienced and understands the research. For me, that's Dr. Ari Levy. Dr. Levy leads up SHIFT, the group that I belong to personally with other professionals who I admire. I truly hope today, though, that the investment of your time in this webinar is well worth it. I hope that our conversation pays dividends for you, not only now, but for the rest of your life. For me personally, working with Ari has definitely paid dividends, and I hope that is the same for you. I hope your awareness is up and that you can think about how to align yourself with a guide, a professional that can add purpose to your plan and accountability. That's what I've done. I hope you get that same benefit. So let's get started with today's webinar on bolstering your wealth for a better future. So Ari, welcome to the conversation.
Hey, Michael, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure, Ari. I really enjoyed our conversations in the past, and today I just want to make an observation. I see so many similarities between what you and I do in our professions. In each, we serve as a guide, a professional that works with people that want to attain more, that want to do it in a purposeful way. I think that's really, really great that we share that commonality. I also know a lot of people, a lot of professionals that want to plan. In our case with wealth management, they want to maximize their earnings. They want to be able to save those stellar earnings and build durable wealth. They want to educate their children. They want to make smart transitions from full-time work to what else they choose afterwards. And they want to invest their capital so that it's as high achieving as they are. Well, what we found at Cogent and our profession has generally is that having a written, well thought out financial plan creates the highest odds of success, Ari. Something you have related to me is also how having a plan of how to embrace wellness and a health plan in my own life and other professionals can be very purposeful and lead to better outcomes. Can you explain to me, Ari, how you've worked with professionals like myself and others to build their health plan?
For sure. So probably not much different than some of the work you guys do and some of the work we see what I'll call all-stars and Hall of Famers do. First, I'm going to talk philosophically and a little bit high level. You have to focus, which means you got to pick something. You can't do everything because time is the currency that we're dealing with. And so you got to focus. You got to have a growth mindset. What does it mean to have a growth mindset? You know you are going to find the best path through, even if you stumble. Then what you have to do is you have to build structure, support, and accountability. So you have to ensure that you've got the right plan in place, you got the right people in place, and that you have a feedback loop to make sure that your inputs are leading to the right output. And then the final piece to all this is you actually have to do the work. So the science calls this deliberate practice. And quite frankly, that is often the hardest part for many of us in our life is staying the course once you've made that plan. Michael, I see you nodding your head, so I think you can relate to that, as can I. When it comes to how we think about it from a health standpoint, we take that framework and we begin to apply it very specifically. So we want to assess a human being, who they are, where they're at. We have an expert team that asks those questions and does evaluations. We need to test and gather information. So if we think about a human being for a second, head to toe, we've got to gather here and within the body to understand what's going on. Then we have to layer in the we have to do an evaluation so we can layer in the context of what's around this human being, what they're going through, what they need. And then we thereby monitor, right? We monitor for progress based on the goals we've set and we know we need to make. And like any other great doc, there's clinical care. So stuff comes up all the time, and we, both what we'll say is mental and physical related ailments that require medical attention. And so we have to do that. And the last piece we think about, which we know is really important, is access. So making sure you have the right access to the right resources at the right time. One of the scariest parts about healthcare/sick care is when bad stuff is going on and you need to access the right people and you can't get there for weeks, months, or you don't even know who to turn in if you have the right person. So making sure that you've got that is, the final piece to that puzzle, because it's episodic and intermittent, but when you know the number to dial or who to reach out to, it solves a lot of problems.
Ari, I can really appreciate that. One of the things I like best about working with you is the access, the question that you have that's on your mind, especially when something big comes up. And COVID was one of those things. My family fortunately survived and thrived through it very well. But just to know that that access is there, to be able to use your process to be able to get questions answered quickly so that I can make better decisions for me and my family. That is such a great thing. The one thing I noticed that you talked about before with focus, growth, structure, and accountability was also doing the work. I think that's all too important. Stephen Pressfield has written so many books about just that, about the art of, or the war of art, and doing the work, about just that we have to get down to it. You have to do what's appropriate. What I do see, though, in my world of the financial world and coaching high achievers, is that most humans are not wired to do the work when things get stressful, though. Biases, fears, other, really deeply wired things in us come out and rear their ugly head in times of stress. I think it's difficult for us as humans to prepare ourselves to understand just what our own tolerances are for volatility and risk when they arrive. So to have success, I believe you need to design and build and stick with the plan just like you do, to ride through those temporary downturns and then to receive the long-term benefits of the upside. So tell me, Ari, when you think about a patient's risk profile, I guess, as we talk about it in the financial world, how do you equate that to their health and the perspective that you have?
It's a great question and setup here. So I use these quotes that I often anchor on. So we often suffer more in imagination than we do reality. So when you're exhausted in the morning and you don't want to get out of bed and you just want to snooze, are you really suffering? Right? No, you're not. You just don't want to get out of bed. You don't want to change the comfort, right? And then we often use the phrase easy choices, hard life, hard choices, easy life. So sometimes, the path through is not always the easiest. So what we look to think about first and foremost is we actually tell people it's not intuitive to be healthy. So that sounds backwards, right? We're told, all the messages say you should exercise, sleep, etc. But if anybody has had children or has little ones, nieces, nephews, and you watch them, they're not, for the most part, thinking about what they should be eating or the physical activity and the amount of steps they're getting in. What they're trying to figure out is how to engage socially in this world and connect with others, right? The human interaction. And the reason I bring that up is because a lot of our health is habitual, which means what was modeled, what was put in front of us. We eat for many reasons, fueling being one of them, but we eat for a lot of emotional reasons as well. And so if I bring this back, I said, health isn't necessarily intuitive. It's because when we think about understanding your health, about 40% of your health outcomes are behavior related. Another 30% is genetics related. But let's qualify that for a quick second. The genetics related, only about 10% of that is non-modifiable, okay? Only about 10% is non-modifiable. About 60 to 70% of that 30% is modifiable, and about 20 to 30% is we don't know. Then the other aspects that affect your health are your social circumstances and then your medical care that you haven't received. So, you pose a question, how do we think about risk tolerance? And the way I then handle that is first the understanding of how we're built to think about our health, how we're built to care for ourselves, which unless it was modeled for you is not intuitive. And then finally, understanding the risk tolerance in medicine. We talk about high yield, high reward when you outsource the work. It's called surgery, interventions, right? So it's where you're placing your life in the hands of an expert. And you're hoping that they're skilled enough to fix the immediate problem and then solve from there. But you'll notice what we just said here about health is that 40% of it is habits. And of the 30%, which is genetics, 60 to 70%. So that's another 20%. So you're basically looking at 60% of your health is predicated on your habits, which means what you do day in and day out. So wealth in this domain, WELLth, is really predominantly driven based on what you do or don't do. And so what we talk about with all of our folks is how to understand who you are, where you're at, and what you want. And then try and connect those dots and make sure that we build the right support, accountability, and checkpoints to make sure that we're helping you along the way. It's your journey, but we want to be the Sherpas alongside you.
That's fantastic when you think about that. What more motivation can you receive than what you internally want to achieve? And if you can look for a guide such as yourself that can help you achieve that, it seems like that would be the best way to increase the propensity for it to happen. One of the things you said, Ari, is that really hit home with me is where you talked about so much of it is habits. In financial planning, what we do, we see people that have the ability to defer some consumption in the present, to be able to capture those stellar earnings they make, to build durable wealth, gives them gratification knowing that they have this position of strength to be able to do whatever they want later, whether they can anticipate or not what's coming their way. So cash flow is important, and finance and in business and all. Cash flow is really important. So where's your cash flow at? How much can you set aside, and how do you invest it for the future? How do you look at cash flow in a health perspective for a patient?
Yes, cash flow is very clear for us. It's, what are the inputs daily that you're doing to help make sure that you're building your health? So what is the movement you're doing? Purposeful movement. You'll notice that I did not say exercise because it doesn't have to be exercise for everybody. What is the right fuel that you're using or putting into your body? You'll notice I didn't say nutrition or, exactly how you're eating because, for us, and albeit it's a little bit of what I call maybe a zealot perspective, we think about fueling this thing, fueling to perform, fueling to recover, fueling to enjoy, right? It doesn't mean you're not enjoying and you're having a glass of red or you're having a luscious dessert. You're still picking those. So it's, it's fuel, movement. It's also recovery. Okay. So how are you giving yourself the downtime to make sure that you repair and relax? Because what we understand in the studying of Hall of Famers in work and in life and in all disciplines is that their ability to repair and recover is unprecedented. They know when to show up, and in modern day terms, we call this wisdom. We pick fights that we should have and the ones that we need to avoid. We know we don't have to get distracted by this noise, but we do have to, focus on that noise. So it's having the wisdom to know that not everything matters and that's just the right stuff. Michael, I remember when we were talking about stuff in COVID, and I just sort of candidly shared how I was skeptical about the markets and whatnot, and I made this decision. You said, you know what? Great, you got lucky, right? You don't know this stuff, you don't understand it in a very kind and loving way, and it was a really reinforcing point because we like to validate when we're right, forget when we're wrong. And quite honestly, having the right structure, support, and accountability to make good decisions and stay consistent is critical.
Yeah, it's funny. I think what you're saying there is that, many of us think of ourselves as, I don't know, as being better than we are in many ways. And yet when we're on that island, I don't think when we're on an island of we think so much highly of ourselves. And mostly it's the biases of, look, I've made good decisions in life. I've put myself in this position in a great way. I think that's wonderful. And I think it's so important to respect that. But it's also important to understand that you need accountability. You need somebody to maybe push back a little bit and maybe say, maybe it was a little more luck than skill, because that's a very fine line right down in the middle. There's risk on one side and there's luck on the other. And I think we walk that line both personally and professionally all the time. And when the luck runs out, we blame others. And when the luck wins, we say it was skill. So that's one thing I've become really aware of in my own life. And I try to just give little insights into that to others. So tell me, yes.
Yeah, really quickly. So just the one piece I want to build off of, because, you asked about the cash flow piece and I wanted to bring this to closure, which is, so there's the activities that you're supposed to do. Okay. And I want to list out what are, so this is what we call blue zone work, which is the study of centenarians and people who live to 100 and beyond. What are the key elements and categories that they have in their life? Okay. They have the right outlook, they eat wisely, and they connect. Okay. Those are the three main domains that they do. And within those domains, the right outlook means they downshift. Okay. AKA repair and recovery, as we said. B, they have a purpose. There's a reason for being. They're not meandering. They're directed towards something. They eat wisely. So that means that 80% of the time they're eating pretty clean. They have a plant slant, which means they tend to eat more vegetables. It doesn't mean no meats, but it tends to be a plant slant. And then what they do is, so here it says wine at 5. So they give themselves an ability to, come down and unwind. The other part is connection. So loved ones first, a sense of belonging, and having the right tribe. Now you'll notice, you'd say, well, what kind of medical, how do we check that box? And these are things that you have to pay attention to. And Michael, as you'll know, we ask these questions all the time of our members to understand who they are and where they're at. And when I think about cash flow, one of the things we do as humans is that we give ourselves permission at the end of a day. I got up, I did this, I had a fantastic day, I dealt with this stress, I had a crappy day, and now I'm off, right? I deserve something. And just understanding that oftentimes the way in which we measure that on our own versus with the right support and accountability are fundamentally different.
Great. So one of the things I heard you say and by the way, I'm as guilty as anyone about that I'm off and allowing myself not to be as accountable. But one of the things that I see that you talk a lot about is that rejuvenation. So in my own professional life, I set days aside where I completely ignore my profession and my business. I am willing to step away, even to the point of just ignorance as to what's going on. I've empowered my team to take care of things. I've made sure that I'm prepared to be able to do that and to be able to walk away and rejuvenate. Tell me, when you talk about rejuvenation, Ari, and when you would counsel someone like myself on what to do on a day off, what does that look like? What do you think is a successful day for somebody?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I think I'm going to answer that in two ways. First, I think it's age dependent. So when you're younger, you actually have to build the skill of repeatability and deliberate practice. You have to become that all-star, which means, as you know, you've got to do a lot of work. And sometimes that work is hard and it's repetitive because you have to ingrain that pattern. So that pattern behavior has to exist. As you age, and you repair and recover, is going to be very dependent on each human being. We often talk about mild to moderate physical activity. So something that you have to take a breath every fifth word, but not any longer or shorter than that. And what's critically important there that we think about is ensuring that you have the right checks and balances. Does that make sense? Michael,
Very
you're
much so.
muted.
Sorry, I muted myself. We had a little noise outside here. No, that makes a lot of sense. Ari, now you've talked a lot about having support and making sure that you have a team around you that looks at the evidence, understands you really well, and then applies the science and maybe even the psychology of how to get through and overcome things and attain what you want. Tell me, what roles do the team members that you, Ari, have put around yourself in your business, what roles do they play to help out professionals and create transformative opportunities?
Yeah, so our team is comprised of physicians, nurses, physical therapists, dietitians, trainers, massage therapists, under our roof. So we think about all the modalities in terms of how you move your body and what you're doing to it, and making sure that we've got the right support there to assess what's happening, treat what's happening, and then also help the repair, recovery, and work aspects of it. And then outside of us, as you know, we link to all the experts that we need to.
Yeah. So tell me, you talk about movement and body movement. You said before that it can take so many different forms. Can you put a little color on that, about that portion of what you should adopt and how you should think about it?
Yeah, so I think about functional movement, right? Fitness has been broken down into very much like athletic domains of speed and agility and endurance and strength and flexibility. And while those are domains, when you look at the centenarians who have lived the longest, what they do is they need to move with purpose. So that can look like gardening, that can look like playing with your kids or your grandkids, right? That can look like going for a walk with a family member. That can also be going for a run to clear your head. So the spectrum is broad. I see, the mountains in that picture back there. It can be skiing. Those are things that allow you to exercise the body and nourish the mind. So they can take all forms. You don't have to feel like you're a hamster on a treadmill, at 5 a.m. or whatever time. It doesn't have to be that. That is not the measured modality. Now, I don't want to take away for, the person who loves to go to the gym. I mean, you're speaking to somebody here who loves being there. It's a therapeutic location for me. So I love the ritual and the routine and the effort and all of the ambiance and all of that.
Yeah. I can see a corollary too in what you're saying about professionally and personally. When I look at myself, when I'm in conversations with professionals, when I'm asking that next question, when I'm just trying to learn that much more about people and where they're headed and how maybe we can educate them on their choices and then get them to the other side and then help them execute on that plan, that brings me joy. If I do that and only that on a focus day, I'm not tired at the end of the day. I feel sated. I feel like I've actually done what I love doing. I think the same thing is in my workout life. While I like going to gyms and all that, I got to tell you, I think that bike riding, skiing, taking a run, taking a big hike out in nature is so engaging and curative for me on many levels. You talked about clearing the mind, the road aspects of biking and road biking on a long distance seems to free me up to think. So I really appreciate it. I think I've solved some of my greatest challenges while just being out and about.
I think, being connected with nature for many of us, especially those who live in larger metropolitan areas, is an underrated, extremely valuable return. It's one of those things that until you're out there, whether you're walking out on a sunny day, away from cars, away from people, or getting that bike ride, the physical activity and its connection to the environment is super restorative.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. So tell me, Shift is located in a large metropolitan environment. It is a really easy place to access and all, but you often have to go to traffic or others to get there. What if I choose, like I have, to spend more time outside the state and to do other things? How can I access Shift? How can I think about medical professionals? All those things when it comes to creating a plan for my own health wealth.
Yeah. Fortunately for everyone, Shift cares for folks in multiple states, and we're licensed to provide care in a number of them. So what that means, even though our home base is in Chicago, is technically you got to come into Chicago once. So it is a flight, but you come in, you get assessed, you meet your team, and then they work with you remotely for the time you're away. And then when acute stuff comes up, we have a tactical plan in place of who you're going to see and what you're going to do in the areas that you live. So it's something we plan and prep for. So we care for folks out of the state. So we can and would love to do that. That being said, some folks have the need and feel they just want the doctor close by. They want to be able to go in and see him or her, which makes sense. Totally understand that as well. And so what we talk about with folks, or what I talk about with family and friends who want to find doctors, is first and foremost, we want to figure out, do they have a growth mindset? So are they a learner? Do they have the technical requirements? Meaning, are they board certified? So those are it's a technical element of being a good physician. And then what is the interpersonal relationship like? So do they have the ability and the space to hold humility? I mean, Michael, we get things wrong all the time, right? I mean, and physicians are lauded as being the knowers, right? It's, surgeons have the notion of having the God complex, et cetera. We're supposed to have all these answers. There's a lot of times that we don't. And I think in medicine, and I find in life, it's much more empowering to say, I don't know, but I'm going to use my skills to help figure this out. And so when you're looking for a physician, not many physicians are trained because medical school doesn't do it around how do you properly nourish your body? How do you properly move your body? So when you're looking for that physician that may be thinking about how to have a holistic or comprehensive approach, you want them to also share the upper limit. Tell me what you don't know. Who are going to be our resources and experts to help us? Because we can't all be everything to everyone. You got to know what you do. You got to know where your boundaries are, and then ask for help.
That's interesting. It's changed so much from the prior generations, where it seemed like doctors or rabbis or priests or whatever, that they were vaulted positions that were unquestionable. And it seems like now we've taken another turn where it's more of a partnership, and where we understand that some humility is appropriate, but even some empathy at times to understand where someone's coming from. That seems to be a big part of an offering now that's changed, besides the ability to be humble and to say, I don't know, but I'll find out.
Yeah. There's, the concierge, the world of concierge and executive physical medicine have been around for about the last 25 to 30 years. They're I guess you could call them new evolutions of primary care, and those categories exist. But they're transacting on something different, right? Concierge medicine transacts on service and access, but maybe not on, progress. And executive medicine transacts on time. We're just going to do a lot of assessment, get that stuff done. And so in the evolution of medicine, you have a lot more transactions, and the relationship we believe is missing because, we think about relational care, not just transactional care.
Yeah, I think that's one of your greatest strengths, besides your table stakes of being a great doctor, and then also your entrepreneurial mindset that also allows you to sit in the seat alongside the person and understand what they're going through, both in their professional and personal life, being a father and everything. I got to say, I think that's one of your strengths, Ari. I really do. And your team builds on that. I think that's one of the nice things that I've experienced through working with Shift.
Thank you.
So I really appreciate this. Focus, growth, structure, accountability, and doing the work. It sounds like you need to have a plan going forward. It just is so imperative. It's in both of our worlds. It leads to the higher probability of success. And I really appreciate that our models are set up somewhat alike in that we design, build, and then protect plans and monitor as we go along. And use the evidence, it seems, to be able to guide our path, not conjecture, not just maybe some emotion, but it seems like much more evidence is brought into the discussion. it seems like that would lead to a much more successful experience even for people that we work with.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm appreciative of that. Kelly, I'd like to bring you in on the conversation. Sorry, I've capitalized here on this, but
Yeah, Ari, I thank you again for all this wonderful information. It's certainly very relevant, and I've myself have certainly taken a greater interest in self-care and wellness over the last several years as I've gotten a little bit older. So, all very relevant information. We have a couple of questions that have come in, but I would like to start with one I just have myself. You touched a little bit on the mental health aspect of wellness, but I would really love to hear a little bit more, especially given the year that we've all just lived through. I hear a lot more of folks, just with friends and family and just in seeing things, on the news, increase in suicide. I'm just curious with those that have had a greater extent of depression or anxiety or even losing a loved one over this past year. What advice would you give to somebody who's experiencing those types of challenges?
The advice, first of all, it's through the roof. The amount of mental stress and anguish, particularly because of, for a lot of reasons, there's a lot of vulnerability, stress, uncertainty, financially, socially, emotionally. There's a lot of isolation that's out there. And humans are meant to be connected. We are meant to interpersonally interact with one another, collaborate, come together, and be in groups. And so we've seen a ton of this. It's really important to find the right people and resources. And oftentimes you should lean on your loved ones. And I say you should ask for professional help because and I want to destigmatize, the need for asking for professional help. What I often think about is from a business perspective, when you have a business problem within your existing unit of whatever you're building and doing, and you don't have the right resources to solve that problem, you may end up bringing somebody or something in-house to help fix it, but immediately you have to go outside to ask for help to solve that problem. And we see these examples, whether it's in architecture or something that breaks in our home, into business life. Asking for help is the most crucial first step to solving that problem. And if you can do that, then you stand the chance of making progress. But we tell everybody that it has to feel like a fit. So there's a necessary precondition for really good therapeutic work to work, which is that you have to feel safe, secure, and that it's a trusted relationship. So that can happen and does happen over time, but the safety and security part, you should be able to feel that. So you should be able to feel a connection there with that professional you're working with. And it's okay if you don't, you move on.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. And personally, both of my children, when they were a little bit younger, experienced a good amount of anxiety. And I took them both to a therapist, the worry doctor, as we called it. And it helped them tremendously. And I, especially with the year with all these kids home e-learning this past year, I know so many children have experienced a high amount of anxiety. And I do agree that seeking professional help would be advantageous.
Yeah, it's interesting if I can tangent for one quick second here. I think we all face and realize this, but life is chaotic and there are so many things that we cannot control. And it's acknowledging that when something's out of our control, that we get the right support and resources. And so, as parents, we see this all the time. You can't protect from adversity, but you can help walk through it and figure out how to solve it. And I think, that wisdom, which was passed down to me, allows you to go from being bitter to getting better.
Absolutely. Just a quick reminder too, for those tuned in today, if you do have a question, now would be the great time to submit that through the chat box. I do have another one here that came in, which I'm sure many can relate to, again, given what we've lived through recently. But the question is, it says, my stress level has been through the roof this year due to working full time, helping my kids with their e-learning, and also having to take on a greater role in helping out my parents as they age. I feel like my own health has suffered because of this. What are some tips or tools you can suggest to help minimize stress and improve my health?
So I'm going to give a really quick acronym called RAIN. And then in follow-up, Michael, I'm going to give you guys the stress metabolism handout, which is going to walk you through how we think about metabolism. So this might be a little bit of a longer answer, and which will be, we'll follow up with some actual content / material here. So RAIN stands for recognize, accept / acknowledge, investigate, and then N is non-identity. So I am not my emotions, my thoughts, my body. So this is a quick, simple tactic, right? To provide space between the emotion and the action. We have certain feelings and we don't want to hold those, especially the negative ones, right? Everybody wants to feel the elation, the joy, the excitement, but none of us want to feel the anguish, the uncertainty, the anxiety which builds. But understanding where that's originating from, what domain of your life in health or wellness is off? Is it financial? Is it social? Is it emotional, right? Like understanding that helps get to the root of it. So recognize, accept that it is a feeling, and feelings are transient. It is a neurochemical response to a certain set of stimuli. Investigate that. So dig in there, ask, is there something I need to do? And don't be reactive, right? Is there action I need to take? So I will speak personally about this. I get really anxious when I can't find the time that I know I need to do the work. I don't consider myself the smartest person, but I work a lot and I am an iterator. I need time to do draft upon draft, practice upon practice to find my comfort in order to present or to prepare so that I can show up well. So I get really anxious when I look at my calendar and I can't find the moments and the time that I need, other than very late at night because I'm exhausted then. So that's the type of investigation, right? You got to see, and then you've also got to accept, like, I know that's a trigger. I know that's what's going on with me. And then what do I do about it, right? I have my moments like everybody else, but the negative self-talk of I suck or you suck, and this is, it doesn't actually yield a positive outcome in the long term. It may stimulate aggression or emotion for the positive. But what you want to figure out is how do you structurally solve the problems? Does that make sense, Kelly?
It sure does. Yeah, no, I appreciate
Great.
that. Looks like we've got one more question that came in, and I'm actually seeing this too. It says more and more people I know are becoming diagnosed with cancer. Many who are not senior age, but more in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. And you mentioned 30% of our health may be hereditary, but I think you said only 10% you can't really do much about. I think that was what you had mentioned. Clarify me if I'm wrong. So the question says, well, I know some things are completely out of my control. If I want to be proactive in staying healthy, what recommendations do you have to give me the best opportunity to decrease my risks of a cancer diagnosis?
Yeah. So for me, it's a very simple answer. Get a really good doctor. Who's a very curious and eager learner and staying up to date. You don't need to be worrying about that. You want to be able to read some, headline and forward that on and get the science behind it, whether or not you have to do something about it. One of the most important things is to understand to do no harm. And in our in the day and age we live in, we can get access to lots of things and immediately. Right? I want the answer now. I can figure it out. I can figure out the guy who knows the gal who can make X, Y, or Z happen. Okay. Is that going to yield you the proper outcome? Right? Who is the sober person in the room looking at the data, looking at the evidence, understanding the implications? What are the positive yields? What are the negative yields of doing this test? Right? And being able to say, all right, here is where we're at. We may be doing a test not based on any evidence, but based on fear, right? Now, that's not necessarily how you want to operate from a clinical perspective, right? So we need to be able to take angst or anxiety and know what to do with that worry.
Makes sense.
Ari, I think that's a phenomenal insight, and one that Kelly and I also see within our clients, that we can have the best written plan for people, but when things in their personal life come in, whether it's things that we all sacrifice together through and experience together, such as a pandemic or a massive financial downturn, or also things like divorce and other things, that maybe some outlooks become dour. Maybe people are just influenced in a way that doesn't allow them to see past their fear or their aggression. And they may want to do things that are palliative, or something that just wants to make them feel like they're taking action. And I think you and I share that we, and Kelly also, that we can somewhat work towards bettering ourselves by separating that emotion, by understanding that having that plan and that plan will include a plan B in case things don't work out as well, but it'll also allow for some room for accountability and maybe even some pushback when it's more emotional driven than when it's actual thought of things that can be addressed and you don't always have to take action when dealing with things. So that's a great insight. Thank you for that.
With pleasure.
You know, I really, really am impressed by the investment you made in us today. Personally, I'm appreciative of the years that we've been working together and the investment you've made in me and my family. But I just today want to thank you for the insights, the knowledge, even the self-reflection that you've done here, that you've shared with all of us, that you are much better when you're not on an island. It is more effective when you have people around you, good people like the people at Shift and you, Ari, that gives you the opportunity to enjoy a lifetime of health and wellness and create a plan and get that. I founded Cogent on those very same principles of designing and building and protecting a wealth management plan for high achievers. And I really appreciate that our worlds have crossed and our paths are walking together now in serving people and, you know, serving myself too. Just to honestly say that having somebody that can look at me and understand my goals, my dreams, maybe even my fears and my challenges, that's really important. And I think in both our worlds, doing that for others can be so gratifying and stressful. So people like you and I also have to be purposeful about when we decouple, when we rejuvenate, so that we can serve others. Many of the people on this webinar today are watching in the future. There's so many people that you carry on your shoulders. I think one of the best things is to make yourself the best person you can be, so that you can be there for others when they need you, so that you can answer the call. And I hear that from so many people that we work with, that they want to be there for their family, for their clients and their employees and partners, and also for their community. And having a plan, whether it's wealth management or health wealth management, both of those are really better served by taking the appropriate steps. So, Ari, I want to thank you. I really appreciate this. If you have any parting thoughts, we'd love to hear them now. And then I'm going to turn it over to Kelly.
Thank you guys for having me. It was a real pleasure. And I hope you all enjoyed, because I certainly did.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ari.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ari. We certainly appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge of how we can bolster our health so that we can achieve all that is important to us and be as healthy as we can be going into the future. In the chat box now, you're going to find a link to schedule a phone call either with Michael and I, if you'd like to discuss your financial future. And we've also included Dr. Levy's contact information if you'd like to learn more about Shift and their approach to health and wellness. We will continue to host webinars, so keep an eye on your inbox for details and registration information. And we certainly hope you'll be able to join us in the future. Again, thanks for joining us today, and we hope you have a great day.